Hi, welcome back to the Trial by JenniFIRE Podcast Series. My name is Jennifer Butterfield. I am your host, and today I have the Director of C-Suite Services with the HT Group and a dear friend of mine, Sam Wood. And Sam, welcome so much. Thank you for coming on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
You bet. Hi, everybody. Jennifer, what a pleasure to be on your show. Gosh, I've been trolling you for some time, and I was certainly delighted when you reached out and asked me to be here. And I've been in Austin for, I don't know, for 30, 40 years now, and I'm currently the Director of C-Suite Services for the HT Group. And my real passion is helping individuals find new jobs, and I also do advisory services and also technology consulting too. So it's just a blast, frankly.
Mm, I love it. And you've got a background in engineering. Did I remember you saying that
That is
right?
correct. I moved originally at one point. I thought I was going to want to be a doctor, and so I started off in biomedical engineering, and I got two engineering degrees at the University of Texas. I graduated with the first engineering degree in 1983, and when we were in the midst of a terrible recession, and so I guess I'd say to people when we do have a recession, it's a great opportunity to go back to school. And I had the opportunity to work on my master's. NASA funded my master's. We were building a space station at the time, and I was working on upper extremity dynamics, and it was they had just tried to use a robot arm in the shuttle to grab a satellite, and they were unable to. And they'd say, "Well, can just three of us go kind of out there, and can we just grab the shuttle?" And they were asking questions like, "Is the suit stronger than the man's grip?" You don't have to answer immediately, but the answer really does need to be correct. And so at the time, they wanted to know if they were going to send people out into space to perform certain tasks, would they be able to do it? You can't go back to Home Depot and get another tool, right? You're kind of stuck with what you got.
Yeah.
And so it was just a great opportunity to do that. What's kind of interesting about that, though, was when I was all ready to be a doctor, and 95% of the people that graduated from that program got into med school, and so I was really on my way, and I was taking a vivisection class. They called it dog lab because we were operating on live. It was a vivisection with live animals, and it was open heart surgery day, and our patient was a little pup about the size of Benji, and heart was going about 200 beats per minute. And the surgeon that day wimped out, and being the confident person that I am, I stepped in and I nicked the pulmonary artery, and he bled out in about 2 minutes. And I realized at that moment that the cost of failure was a bit high for me, and that was not the type of job for me.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
I said, well, computers reboot. People think
Yeah.
computers don't. And so I moved into a different field at that point and sort of went into technology and finished my engineering degree, and ended up working in the medical device industry for 15 years, and then kind of moved into general IT, and then eventually went into consulting. So it's been a wonderful career, but I'll never forget that moment in time is, am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this something what I really want to do? Is this what my passion is? And do I have the emotional wherewithal to do that sort of work? And so it was kind of nice because now that I help people find their new jobs and their new roles, these are the types of questions that I ask them: is what's their passion?
Yeah.
What's their appetite for that? And
Yeah.
I've never forgotten that. So
Thank you for sharing that, first of
yeah, the
all.
little dog's life was worth it every day.
What a defining moment. And it sounds like you ended up in the right place and also, learned a lot in the experience.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm really excited to dive more into purpose and helping people get there and discovering that, because I know that you have just a wealth of knowledge on strategy for that. And before we pivot into the career development, I ask every single one of my guests this question. And I'm always curious just because, like, the heart and soul of Trial by JenniFIRE is personal finance and helping people become more financially literate. And so I think it's always helpful to kind of peer into what the conversation was in each guest's home around personal finance growing up. And so I'm curious if you have a little bit to share about that.
I do have a bit to share. I was born in 1960, so my parents were actually children of the Great Depression. And so clearing out their house when they passed was kind of interesting because they kept everything. Oh my goodness. And I realized later that they were probably comforted by being around stuff. Believe it or not. It wasn't like dirty or anything, just lots of stuff. And their finances were kind of the same way. And just for the record, my father was a professor of mathematics. My little sister still is a professor of mathematics, and my mother taught consumer education and family living at the local high school. So we were in a pretty well educated family, generally for being born and raised in Beaumont, Texas. But what I will tell you about their personal finances is that they had money, but they saved every single penny to the point where I can't remember. I can only remember going on a handful of vacations. You know what I mean? They saved everything in because they were afraid it would just all fall apart, sort of at any moment. And then when I'm dismantling their finances because they're not around anymore, one of the things was, why didn't they have more fun with what they had, while they were still alive? Because they could certainly afford it, looking back. And so that was one of the things that kind of what I thought about. The other thing too about finding, if you raised a bunch of mathematicians, going to Vegas to me is completely boring. It's just math. You know what I mean? It's just, there's nothing magical about it. It's just math. If I want to sit there and do math problems, I'll do math problems. When I go to Vegas, it's for the eating, it's for the shows, but gambling just doesn't really do that much for me. I guess that's one of the other things. But so I was encouraged to save quite a bit, and I would say once I kind of got through college and got out of my college debt, I've been pretty good about staying out of debt since then.
Yeah, that's wonderful. First of all, I thank you for sharing that. And I find that a lot of people are like one direction or the other when it comes to like growing up in a personal finance context. It's like they were raised in a home where saving was like utmost priority, and
All
then
right.
or there was just a lack of implementing those strategies. And so I think like anything in life, it's about finding that balance. I love that you mentioned fun, and I hope we're going to talk a little bit about more about that here shortly. And I'm curious because so my primary audience is like what I would consider the zillennial professional
Mm-hmm.
generation. And knowing what you know about the hiring process, I'm wondering if you could break down a few strategies for individuals who are in the job market to help them kind of create a profile that's going to stand out in this very vast and voluminous candidate pool.
Absolutely. I would say, I'm a big believer in the law of attraction, and what I think is the best way to get what you want is to know what you want. And the most detailed, if you're like this amoeba, just sort of waiting for the universe to kind of push you in the right direction, you know what I mean? That's just what I have found, that people that are successful in finding a career that they enjoy, making the amount of money that they're comfortable with, that they can support their family and have fun with. Because there's several versions of 401k, right? There's the 401k that you have in the bank, and then there's a 401k when you're in a memory care unit and you don't have any more short-term memory, and all your long-term memories are all you have. What have you stored? What life experiences have you really enjoyed during that period of time, right? That's something that I think is really important too. Is think about, put some thought into it. And the same advice I give to folks at the executive level is almost exactly the same advice when I talk to people that are defining their careers as soon as they get out of school. It's honestly the same thing. And there's a beautiful Venn diagram that I usually pull up, and I don't know if you can pull that up now, Jennifer. Are you going to put it in the text later?
Yeah, I can actually pull it up right here just so people can see. Let's see. For those watching, here it
Good
is. Do you want to
job.
walk through it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
I'll leave it up while we talk about it, and then I'll
I've
take it.
seen several versions of this Venn diagram, but this one's my favorite. And it's like, what's out there that you love, and what's out there that the world needs, and not that just they need it, but the world can pay for it. And then do you have the acumen for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you draw a Venn diagram, when you get in the middle of that and you're working in a career and you're working in a career area and you're working in a job position that has those things for you, it doesn't feel like working anymore, does it? And I'm not saying you're not going to have crummy weeks or crummy days or long weeks or long days. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying you're not going to work hard. What I'm saying is from a day-to-day standpoint, are you walking with the river of life? Are you working somehow? Are you somehow fighting against it? And that's the difference. I work with a lot of people that are really senior in their career. This may be the last job or two that they'll have. I tell them every time, the best job you ever had is still ahead of you, not behind you. And so what I tell your listening audience is the best job that you'll ever have is still ahead of you. Just take a little bit of time to get some work, into it. And I think one of the things that we kind of talked about earlier, Jennifer, is, and I think you've already seen the diagram. I think you're going to show, that the PDF will be, available to you.
Yeah, I'll stop this.
But I think that it's amazing to me how some people are okay with it to be miserable in their job. They think maybe that's something they're supposed to do. Like, well, it's work, and that's why they call it work, because work is supposed to suck. And no, it's not. What if you're engaged? What if you're helping people in the way you like to help? Et cetera. I've worked, especially with younger folks, especially they'll say, I want to work at Big Box Inc. because I'm going to work there for 3 years. It's going to suck every single day I'm there, and I understand that going into it. But then once I work there, it'll be in my pedigree, and that job position will be on my, and then I will use that as a stool to get into the next position. And what I'm thinking of, it's like, this is not like that differential equations class or calculus 2 class in college that it's going to suck and you're going to hate every day, but you have to do it to get your degree. This is your career, right? You want to treat that a little bit differently. I would prefer, I'm not saying you're not going to work hard. I just like, if it's going to feel like it sucks every day, why do you want to do that? Is that for sure what you want to do? If you put some thought into it, maybe it's something different that you're into it. You're not treating it like, well, first of all, I don't have that many years left in my career. So that was like already, it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. When the person was telling this to me, I'm like, no, I just don't treat career that, because I don't have that much time left to spend that kind of time. I don't have 3 years of a crummy job left in me, right? But then I'm thinking, well, who does at any age?
Right.
Really, right?
Definitely.
Are you willing to sacrifice 3 years of your life with it really being crummy every day? It doesn't make sense. So there's that. The other edge that I think is really, really important is, what is a value system of the company that you're looking to work for? Really, what are they about? When I'm interviewing for a company, the first thing I'm doing is one of the things I do, part of the research is see what their mission statements is. What are their core values? Find out what they are. And when I get on an interview, I'll kind of question the core values a little bit. And when the person I'm interviewing doesn't have any idea what I'm talking about, I realize that, okay, a couple of management teams went out to, Camp Kumbaya. They came up with these are going to be our core values, right? Somebody got a check mark for that, okay, we did our core values check. Okay, we're done with them. And that they're not really part of their organization. And it's interesting because I was at a networking event from the finance side. And the lady that was a whistleblower for Enron was a presenter. And that was one of the things that she brought up. She said, if their core values are like, we want to sell our company at 5x in 2 years, and that's their value. I'm not saying that's not a goal, but their core value needs to be something about what they do and the product that they sell, kind of on a day-to-day basis. So, one of the things I'm looking for, I recommend that people find a company that either matches their core value system or frankly is better, than their current core value system. And that was one of the things that really drew me to my current company. Our company believes very strong in our core values, and we follow it, even when it's tough, right? Even when it costs us, we know it's the right thing to do. And so everyone feels, it just makes a huge difference that I'm here for the right reasons. One of the things that I really enjoyed about working in the medical device industry is every day I went there, I felt like we were helping people that were in pain. And that was really admirable. And when I worked in oil and gas, it's like we're helping people get to work, right? We're giving them gas for their vehicle. So it doesn't have to be giant. It doesn't have to be real complicated. But is it something that you respect yourself, from when you get done, every day?
Absolutely. First of all, I think it's so important to connect with that sense of purpose. And we saw that on the Venn diagram, but I think too, I'm curious, and I'm going a little off script here because I was a non-traditional student. So I was in my early 30s in a university class with a lot of people who were just out of high school, and I remember being that age, not being in school, but, being very lost in terms of direction, and I'm curious, like, I mean, what are some things that you have seen help people refine, how to get in touch with their purpose? Like, where is that compass? How do they know they're in the right place or on the right track? Do you have anything to share about that?
I would say, let's to take one step back. I think one of the things is really, really important is to come up with a marketing plan. And there's a really good book that I found that I've used at all levels, including C-suite, right? CEOs, CFOs, COOs, and I've used with people, just out of school. And I think we talked earlier about including the link, and it's Orville Pierson wrote the book. I've met Orville Pierson on a Zoom call. He looks just like the Nutty Professor. He spent over 30 years at Lehigh Harrison. And if you don't know what that company is, if you were like ExxonMobil and you were going to lay off 5,000 people globally, this is the type of firm that you would hire to kind of help those people transition into a new job. So this is a large organization. And he, over the years, he collected information. It's what was successful in people finding jobs. What made them successful. And the first thing he talks about is the making of your own marketing plan. What's your elevator pitch? In 20 seconds, 30 seconds, defining what you're looking for and writing that down, right? And actually end up practicing it. And we get together oftentimes in practice, with the folks that are that I work with that are in search, practice that, because you'll be at some networking event and say, Jennifer, so what is it you're looking for? And it'll just roll out of you. Mm-hmm. What you're looking for is so refined. I mean, you'll say, okay, how'd I do? You want me to do an iambic pentameter? I can do that too. I know it that well, right? And yeah. And so, one is like, what is it about? What is it you're looking for? And then some real research about, and some of this is coming right off that Venn diagram, right? Is what are the job sectors that would be interesting to me? So my last round, I was in oil and gas for a while. I was in software as a service. I could work in that. I was working in medical devices. I could work at that. So these are interests that I have that I would be successful in.
Yeah.
And then it's like, now do the research. I want a job in this, right? But does the ecosystem exist, right? Do you want to stay in Austin, or you want to, what's your geographical situation, right? If you want to, because I was working with a guy that wanted to be in aerospace and stay in Austin. Now that's awesome, but we're talking two companies. That's not a whole lot to deal with, right? And so we had to have the real conversation. It's like, dude, you need to put that point in Austin, Texas, and you need to draw the protractor out a bit, because you're not going to find that position. I don't think you're going to find what you're looking for in that area. So when we do the market research for what I'm looking for, is what I'm looking for, does it actually exist? And the answer was no. But you know what? He expanded it, got a great job in Los Angeles.
Amazing.
He had to show up. He had to be on site for one of the manager meetings once a quarter. I mean, how hard is that, right? Fly to LA, once every 3 months. And it worked out great, right? So it's just, what I tell people is, it's important to make sure that, do the research up front, right? And it goes to one more step. And here's where Orville Pierson really is brilliant. And that is, can you come up with 50 target companies that you would consider working for?
Love 50. Wow.
That's 50 target companies, right? So come up with 50 target companies, and put as much detail behind that as you can. Remember, the best way to get what you want is to know what you want. So do I want to work for a giant company, or do I want to work for a startup or somewhere, a middle-sized company, right? These are the kind of questions that you're asking. And the size of the company could be with number of employees, or it could be revenue. Then and it's what's interesting is as soon as you get a list of 50 companies, everything changes. And you know why? Because now you're playing offense,
Right. You've got
right?
options.
I am
Yeah.
not I am not waiting for something to flip on, I'm not going through Indeed and ZipRecruiter and all these these other companies, I am coming after you. You're
Right.
not coming after me. I'm coming after you. Because what I want to do is I want to talk to the decision maker that has the ability to create a position knowing that you exist. I want my resume to be what's used to create the job description. So that the job
Okay.
description is already in other words, if you're able to talk to the decision maker, and what Orville Pierson says is by the time you talk to 50 decision makers, you will have your job, which means sometimes
Wow.
it'll be the first guy and sometimes it'll be the guy or gal. Next time it'll be the 100th. But generally, I found that the number is pretty much the same. And so what you're doing is you're vetting these companies if you want to work for them, right? And you're trying to get to the decision maker. Now you'll get to some of these, you can talk to the janitor or the janitorial or the cleaning staff of a company, and if the C-suite's a bunch of jerks, they probably already know that. You would know not to talk to them, right? Like, there is no way I would work here if I were you, type of question, right? It could be anyone that works for that company in any way, or know someone who does, and that's where the real power of LinkedIn is that second and third order people that you can get to the decision maker. They talk about the importance of talking to influencers. An influencer would be someone that if they're not making the decision, they would probably be your peer at the company when you were working there, but they know the decision maker well enough to pitch you and say, hey, you need to talk to Jennifer Butterfield. She's awesome about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think she'd really fit in here. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason I go to all this trouble to say that is by the time you add up recruiting firms like us and every other recruiters that are out there, and I did last time I checked, there were, I think, 27,000 people that were listed themselves as recruiters or executive recruiters in
Wow.
Austin. So, I mean, there's enough
In
recruiters out there.
Austin.
In Austin, dude, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a recruiter in town, right? You count all of those people. You count all the Indeed, all the Zip recruiters, all of these, these third party, systems,
Yeah.
and it maybe represents 15% of the job market. So I'm not saying don't spend your time on that, but if you're spending all of your time waiting for jobs to come up on Indeed, you're aiming at that 15%.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be contacts. It's gonna be who you know. When I was in grad school, it was someone in grad school that pitched me to the position for the medical device manufacturer, and that's how I got the interview, and I got the job without even really talking
Mm-hmm.
directly to the decision maker that was
Mm-hmm.
referred by an influencer, and that happens over and over again. And so what I'm telling people is, as you're going into your career, start building those networks, those professional networks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just there's some and chances are there's organizations around the type of business that you're about to go into. Volunteer in those, get
Mm-hmm.
involved. Don't wait
Mm-hmm.
until you need a job before you join these groups, right? Get
Right.
involved. It is who you know. So one of the biggest
Totally.
things that we like to tell people, and COVID kind of threw a wrench in that, is close your laptop and go have some coffee with people, right? We tell it over and over again. Get out there, get out there, get out there. And so it's just we just seen this work time and time and time again. Orville Pearson's a great methodology to follow, and it puts some real guardrails around that. Even the number of hours, because I remember I was in job search and I was spending about 10 hours a week, and Orville says most people spend about 10 hours a week on their job search. If your job is to find a job, you should be spending between 30 and 35 hours. You should be looking for your job does become your job, and you start to treat it like your job.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing else I will say about that, if you're treating your job search as a job, that means you get off work. I'm done for the day, right? It's
Yeah.
the weekend. It's
Yeah.
my child's recital. I'm going to take a vacation, right? And it allows you to do that because sometimes we're looking for a job can be kind of it can be emotionally taxing, right? But they also
completely.
keep metrics, and you look at your metrics and you go, no, I've talked to 3 decision makers this week. I had 10 meetings. I sent resumes out to, so many people. I've done what I'm supposed to do. And once I hit, I'm focused on meeting with decision makers, not necessarily interviews, because I can't control an interview, whether I get an interview or not. What I can control is am I having a conversation with a decision maker.
Yeah,
You can tell I'm
absolutely.
kind of passionate about this. Watching people get jobs and getting a job that they love and then excel in the job you love, I can't tell you how much it's really a delighting thing to do.
I love it. I love it. You sharing about the networking and having coffee reminds me of, so I was involved in this university commercial real estate women professional organization through a friend of ours that referred me while I was in undergraduate studies. And we had a mentor who, this woman was like a senior level executive at a development company. And she answered a few of my questions during the mentorship. We met a few times, and she said to me, go through your contact list A to Z and ask every single person if they've got time for coffee and just catch up and see how they're
Yeah,
doing. I didn't even get past my A's, and I have the role that I have now. And she was in the role 7 years, and with a
yeah,
great company. And I mean, I had to, park downtown and ride the elevator all the way up. And I mean, it was just, remarkable. And we talked about ethical things, but that came to mind. And I just love that. And I'm curious too. I heard you mention Zoom, right? Because this is like the
yes.
alternative of in person. So, can you share a little bit about Zoom etiquette? I think a lot of recent graduates or students who are about to graduate, maybe have had less formal Zoom experiences because they've been in school and they can have their camera off. Can you elaborate, why you found this to be important and what it means, what it looks like?
Absolutely. What's interesting about Zoom is that it's got its pluses and minuses. The one thing I've learned about Zoom is that I think it's easier to get a meeting when people don't have to leave their desk side, right? So that part is awesome. That part I really, really like about it. Um, I think the ability to actually really connect is less so, right? In terms of etiquette, the best example I have is I was talking to someone who was I had an opening for a project manager, and I'm talking to this guy, and I can see this gentleman, and there's the shelf behind him is like completely trashed. Oh my God. It looked like my garage looks on my worst day. It's like,
Oh,
and I'm looking at like, this is like a perfect picture of what the project's going to be like. It's going to be,
oh,
pictures are flying around and dogs and cats are barking at each other. And, you just knew it was just going to be a disaster just by looking at what behind you. There's a disaster right behind you was like a perfect example. But there was one of what we really talk about Zoom presence as part of, is part of what we do. And one of the other links that I want to share with you is there's a retired daytime actress. Her name is Sandra Dee Robinson, and she's absolutely beautiful, and she is absolutely hilarious, and it is worth watching just for that. And she was on all of the major soap operas. I mean, like she had a long career, in this field, and she talks about camera angles. She talks about lighting. She talks about what's behind you, right? And it's especially true as we're getting into more of the C-suite, the upper management and C-suite jobs. When you're talking about the highest row of chairs, the very first row of chairs, and there's just one chair, right? Each company just needs one CFO. I can promise you, at that level, whoever else that they're talking to has every bit of credential that you do. Every single person, man or woman, can do that job. They have the pedigree, they've got the background, they've got the experience, right? But it's usually something a little extra that's going to push that person over the top. I think that we probably could go to Mars tomorrow in terms of the technology. What we're probably lacking is, can you put 8 people in the size of an efficiency apartment without killing themselves on the way to Mars and back? It's a 2 or 3 year trip, right? And
Right.
I think executive teams kind of suffer from that because they are very hardworking, very driven people, and given they're looking for that
Right.
culture fit, and it's any little thing to kind of push it over. One of the guys on our team is now a CEO of a company. He turned down 7 jobs to get this one that
Wow.
he wants, and he ordered the little camera that I mean, right now I can either look at me or I can look in the light of where the camera is. And I'm looking at me a lot of the times, right, during this interview. But when I'm interviewing, I'm staring right at the light in the camera. And if I'm using my little laptop camera, that's perfectly fine. But it's on 3 really thick dictionary style books, so that I'm not looking. People aren't looking at my nose while I'm in the interview, right? And
Mhm.
I've really kind of chosen what behind you. But he's got the little camera that kind of drops it, about halfway in the screen, so he can look at the person, and and the camera's looking at the camera at the same time. It's really important
Right.
to him that at that level, we're talking about the CEO of a company, everything has got to be perfectly right. I know
Yeah.
where I like Zoom. Zoom is my favorite product, and I'll tell you why. And I'll be completely vain about it because I know we have filters on. There's Snapchat filters and every kind of filters. Zoom
Mhm.
has the best, what I call the Doris Day mode, where I think they would put a piece of pantyhose in the old days over the camera to soften her looks. So she's kind of getting an older woman playing a
Yeah,
younger role.
I know exactly
And
what you're
Zoom
talking
has the best. It won't take 10 years off, but it'll take off a good 3 to 5. And you know what, dude? I'm 63 years old and I'll take that all day, right? So, I mean, call me what you like, but I prefer Zoom because I want to look the best that I can.
soft
Um,
lighting.
but she also talks about what's going on in the background, the source of the light. I mean, I talked to people that have, a light from behind them kind of coming toward them. The worst was, and I don't know if I can pull this off. I was on a call with a woman, and she was kind of slouching, and her mouth was right over my name, so I couldn't see what she was saying because her name was printed like right over her mouth, and I'm like, okay, I gotta you're driving me
Oh my
crazy.
goodness.
Yeah, I mean, just little stuff like that, and a lot of times it's just a lot of little things like that. So that's one of the Zoom qualities that we find. There's another link. There's only 4 links, so we'll be doing link all day. But the other link I have is it's about the 20-minute networking meeting. So once you do have that meeting, how do you make that work? And
Mhm.
I always like to ask for 20 minutes instead of 30 because the message is somewhat interesting. The message is, I respect your time. We're going to be crisp about it. I'm going to be prepared, and you're still going to have time to run down the hall if you need to, and still have the time to get a couple emails out if you have to. It's saying, I respect your time. And whenever I've done it, at least 9 times out of 10, I end up getting 30 minutes anyway, to be honest with you. But what's also interesting is, what is the pretense that you're having in this meeting? And I don't care if you're really young in your career or not, study, go in there prepared. When we talk about getting that, you worked hard to get that meeting with that decision maker, be prepared for it. Find out what the company is going to. Look in their news groups. Find out what they were in the news. Don't hesitate to ask them some kind of difficult questions around that too. You know, I found at the executive level, executives love to be challenged. You know, so what are you doing about the class action lawsuits? How's that going? I mean, not quite to that effect, but I mean, no, I mean, really,
Yeah.
they have no, I mean, they've been talking to them about the board, right? They're not afraid to answer that question. They like the fact that you were kind of direct to it. So I'm just kind of keep that in mind. But the last
Love
thing you want to end with is, how can I help you? Right? How can I help
it.
you? Is there something I can help you? The other thing is, what's your quota going into? When you get these meetings, you're not just going in there and asking for the job,
Right.
right? What I want is, I'm looking for 3 other people that I can talk to. When I go to a networking event or when I have a meeting with a decision maker, what I'm really looking for is, who else should I be talking to? And here's where that list of 50 companies come in, because it's like, I'm talking to you, so you kind of know what you do because we've had a 20-minute conversation. And then you also know, what your friends are, your business, folks out there, and you know what they need, and you kind of know what they do. And it's somewhat abstract for them to kind of put that together, right? That's an abstract question, especially for someone that's probably received 200 emails from in the time that we had that meeting, right? and they're booked, 16, 30-minute meetings throughout the day.
Right.
When you show them the list of companies, now you're saying, do you know anyone that works here that you feel comfortable making a warm introduction for me?
Mm-hmm.
And you will find, especially in Austin, Texas, we're the biggest small town there is.
Yeah.
And you will get more meetings out of that. But it's because you put in the footwork, right? You're saying, you're like, do you know anyone here versus do you know anybody that knows me and what you know what I'm saying? It's like, do
Right.
you know anyone here? And I've gotten between, 3 to 5, 7 meetings out of a meeting, like this. So it can be extremely helpful in those situations. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool. It works every time.
What I'm hearing too that I think is more of an unconventional approach, because I hear a lot of people, that I speak with over the course of, their job search, and they're saying, I just am so discouraged because I've applied, for 100 jobs on LinkedIn, and I've submitted my resume to all these different roles in this industry on Indeed, and
Right.
I'm like, well, how many applicants are applying for each given position, and what I'm hearing you say is take the initiative, take the job into your own hands and figure out where it is you want to work and who you want to work with, and then go for it rather than, putting yourself in this huge applicant pool where it's like, there are key words that if, these hiring algorithms don't detect those words, your resume is going to just be completely.
You might have to edit this out later, but Jennifer, I call it playing bullshit bingo, frankly, because that's exactly what that whole keyword thing is. So it just bugs me so much because it is such a colossal waste of time. It's just unbelievable. So, this is how it works: is that they have, they've got little AIs or AI-ish type programs that does keyword searches on resumes, and basically it scans in whatever your resume is, and it kind of matches that, but you can also get versions of that program are out there now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a similar program. I don't know if it's the exact same algorithm, but it's similar. And you will see a job and your resume absolutely nails every single bullet that's on that job description. You nail it. Like, I am the perfect candidate. It is so obvious. And then you copy and paste your resume and put it in one window, and you copy and paste the job description and put it in another. And you let's play bullshit bingo. And it goes, you need to be at about 80, 85% to be considered, and you're at about 42. And I'm like, oh, you're killing me. And they go, well, you didn't use this word. And I'm like, I used this word, but it was a different verb tense. No, but it wasn't that verb tense. So now,
my God.
yeah. So now, oh yeah. Oh, it's very frustrating. So now here I am. Instead of applying for a job, I'm playing like Wordle with this applicant tracking system. I'm trying to get it right. Okay. And then you get that all sent right, and then it goes into a pile, and you've got probably assistant to the HR generalist that's pushing the button, and the top 10 resumes come to the top. Well, that doesn't happen anymore because now programs like Indeed say, would you like us to automatically apply based on your resume? Would you like us to automatically apply? Mm-hmm. So now you've got, and I'm talking to HR people, and they're super complaining because no, we're supposed to have the AI. You're not supposed to have the AI. And so you've got these two AIs, having a fight. Right. And so they'll post a job, and you'll notice some of these jobs get posted. It's like, there's no way 600, it was posted 3 minutes ago. There's no way that 600 people could have sent in an application. Well, they're not all sitting behind their resume, kind of waiting to send it in right away. It's a program sending it automatically. And right. And so that's a big pile of, on their end too. If you want to circumvent all that, have someone say, hey, I have a friend, Jennifer, I think you should talk to. You will go right to the top of the pile. Even the most lukewarmest of referral is so much better to be in what I call the bullshit bingo pile. So do you not do it? No, you do it. There's sometimes where you just have you can't find a connection to save your life. There's no one in your first or second LinkedIn, profile that you have a way to connect into it. You're just kind of doing the best you can on that. And sometimes that's the only thing. And I've had a handful of people do get jobs that way. What I'm telling you is, as higher you get into, I mean, if you were like a certain roles, like certain programmers types, et cetera, maybe that's real helpful. But if it's any kind of
Sure.
leadership position or any level of senior manager or director or above, you're going to be a much better chance getting there in any other way than that.
Yeah.
Also, if someone's working there, they may get a $500 or $1,000 bonus
That's
for,
right. Yeah.
for okay. If you're the little eager beaver and you put in your resume right away, you just screwed them out of $500. So if you know someone at that company, that's what you just did, right? Also,
Right.
if you're working with a recruiting company and they found out you've applied for the job directly, it's unlikely they probably don't want to put in your name because they want to get paid, right? And the company go, well, they already applied to the position, we don't have to pay you, right? And so I'm not saying don't apply, but think before you hit that application. Can someone else represent them better? And as a
Right.
recruiter, we have some great relationships with companies. There are some companies that I could pitch you directly to the decision maker, right? Rather than going through the applicant tracking system, I can put you right at the top of the list. So a lot of times in this situation, if they're recruiting, one of the things you pay, when you're working with it and you're not paying, it's if if anybody's trying to charge you money to find you a job, run from them. That's not very ethical, right?
Yeah.
But so just kind of keep that in mind because there's still some schmucks out there that do prey on people that are looking for jobs, which
Absolutely.
sucks.
Yeah, no, thank you for pointing that ethical dilemma out because I think, I have talked to a lot of these business coaches, and it's like there's a difference, but I think too, I mean, in terms of building out a professional profile and then, helping somebody find a job, there's a distinction there. And I think too, yeah,
And helping with your resume and helping him with your LinkedIn profile, I mean that's a different
different.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah, LinkedIn
absolutely.
profile is a very valuable tool in a lot of ways, and I'll tell you one of the things that's really important to it. The fourth and last link that I will pitch is by Gary O'Neill, and he is a recruiter in Austin. I have seen him give this talk in person. The link that I give is a talk that he gave to the Austin Workforce Commission. So he's really helped a lot of people throughout the years. And what he says is this: the only thing that matters in LinkedIn is the order in which you come up. In other words, if someone is looking for a position and they're looking for certain attributes for what they're looking for, where do you come up with this in the search? He says that's the only thing that matters. So when was the last time you went to page 5 when you were Googling something? Never, right? You never get that far.
Few
Well,
clicks.
recruiters have a fully unlocked version of LinkedIn, so they're able to see everyone that's on there. And they're putting in search, it's a Boolean search. They're looking for someone with years of experience. They're looking for certain roles, et cetera. And they're putting in lines as they look for people. And basically what he talks about is, and since, it's like you want to be in that first page. You want to be the first 1 or 2 or 3 if you can. And he talks about what's the methodology for doing that. And so one of the things that they'll talk about is in the role, if you have several roles that you're lifting, in the title of your profile, that you separate that with a vertical bar versus a comma, because a comma might be the name of a position. So I could be like director, comma, consulting, or it could be director of consulting, right? And what she talks about is those are very important fields, and you want to make sure they're listed as separate fields, right? Et cetera. And so he does. I won't say you'll do everything that he does, but he talks about the quality of the picture that you have. It's kind of interesting in some pictures on LinkedIn. It's like, dude, this is not Facebook. Dude, it's not Snapchat. This is
Right.
here. If you want to be a librarian, you should be wearing some serious librarian-y looking something. Al would wear library glasses in your picture, right? You want to look the part, right? You're not going to be there with your Camaro in the background with your girlfriend sitting behind you. I'm not saying there's a time and a place for that, but it's not LinkedIn, right? Um,
Right.
so, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's really important too. But one of the things like when they have a description and it says, see more, after 3 lines, it says see more. I think you get 5 or 6 lines. And he goes, nobody clicks see more. No one does. And so you click see more and it's keyword, 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 keyword. He goes, the name of the talk is leveraging LinkedIn. What it really should be called is LinkedIn hacking. because it really is a hack. I mean, they're doing it right. I mean, all's fair in love and war, right? The other thing I found LinkedIn to be very useful for is when we're talking about finding those target companies,
Mm-hmm.
you can raise your level of, and it could cost up to $75 a week, or I mean a month. So you can spend a little bit of money on it. So you don't do it until you're ready, if that makes sense. I mean, you're in full job search, and you don't have to do it all at once either. But as you raise your next level of LinkedIn from the free version to different levels of paid versions, what happens is when you do a search, you get additional fields. So you can search by territory or area of the country. You can search by zip code. You can search by revenue, number of people. And so as you're kind of coming up, what is the size company and et cetera, it can really be, programs like that can be really, really helpful. And so you're like, how do you come up with 50? It's easier than you think, right? It really is easier than you think.
No, absolutely. That is very, very useful, especially because I think so many people are always looking to hone, how to refine their candidate profile. And then, I mean, especially, and I guess this is a good pivot because I think so many people who are audience members oftentimes are looking to increase their income. And I know through making a step up on the corporate ladder or, climbing in trajectory for their careers, like what would you have in terms of suggestions for people who are wanting to increase their income with their career? And do you have, can you share a little bit
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
strategy?
And I'll go in order. I think the best, I mean, let's just start with the decreasing debt, especially if it's a compounded interest loan. Honestly, because I mean, the story that I like to start with is that I was working, 20 hours a week at the University of Texas as a RA or a TA, or so it was basically a part-time job. And I was in college probably longer than I should have been because I really enjoyed, the opportunity to learn as much as I can. Um, but I found myself and I did not have did not take student loans. However, I had let's see, in 1985, I had um, I don't know, $17,000 in credit card debt, which translates in about 48, 50,000 now. I mean, it's a lot of, and it was all in different cards of, there's my Dillard's card, and here's my, my Bell's card, and here's my, I had a bunch of different cards, and here's my gas card, and et cetera. And all the interest on all these cards are all, 18%, 21%. And it adds up pretty quickly. And so, I would say the first thing that I did that was right was, and I really like I remember seeing one of the articles that you printed earlier about several ways to pay off that. And there's different methodologies. And what I'll do is share what worked for me. And that is
Yeah.
what I basically canceled all the cards except for my Visa MasterCard. And it was and I sought out a card, and it was through an article that I'd read. I sought out a company that had a high fee but a low interest rate. And I consolidated all of my cards to that one single card. And then I started to pay that one off. And then once that one was finally paid off, then I'm like, well, the fees are too high. Right. These guys were helpful when I needed the low interest rate, but now, I don't need that anymore. And now basically I moved, and I was traveling internationally a lot, so I went with something that would also bring me additional miles because I was traveling to Switzerland a lot on business. So it's like that allowed me to have extra miles. And right now I don't, they make it where you can't get 1,000,000 miles, but I probably have about 950,000 miles to use, that are available to me when I need to. So that's kind of what I do now. Once I dug myself out of credit card debt, it's like I am done with being in debt. Oh my gosh, I'm completely done with that. So nary a month goes by where I don't pay off my cards every single in full. And luckily I've been able to do that. My cars, last Honda Accord I bought, it was a 1% APR. That's not debt. I mean, they're giving you away the car almost to buy it. So that was kind of a situation, but it really bugs me for people and I came from a math family, but there are those that don't. And so, when you kind of come in and you don't think about the numbers, it's like, take the time to think about that. If you find yourself in that kind of debt, I'm not saying you do the same solution that I did, but do something about it. I will also tell is I was planning on getting married at some point, bringing a lot of credit card debt into a relationship that's a real conversation you need to have with who you're dating or want to get married to at someday too, right? So you kind of want to have to. It's certainly something to think about, very certainly. And other than, however, that's why I love talking about. Also, once I did start working, every bit of 401k that I could put money into, I did every year, except for a couple of years where I was in job search, where the money wasn't available to me. I paid off bought an IRA every year. Tax deferment is just a huge way to not pay money. If you're not having to pay Uncle Sam for it now, what a great way to save money. And given the long enough career, and even with the Great Recession that we had in the late 2000s, in the late 2000s, my portfolio has recovered without an issue. So that's not something I really kind of worry about day in, day out. But I will say, when I did graduate and when I did look for a job, I did not get 100% raise, but probably a good 80%. So don't be afraid to reach for the high bar. I'm not saying money's everything, but it's enough, right? It's enough. I think if all you're chasing is the money, that can get you in trouble. But if you don't chase it enough, that can get you in trouble too, right?
Absolutely. They say money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you the things that you need so that you don't have to worry about money so much.
No, exactly. Where it's not something that's in your mind every day, and we were just talking. I was having a conversation at lunch, and we were talking about being in Austin. It was, I guess, that the show Balling. I haven't seen it, but my wife was talking about it. It was you have two people visit the same town, and they have to answer a question right. And the one that answers it right have a lot of money to visit the town, and the other person has to do it for cheap. And they were in Austin, and the person that had to do it for cheap had more fun than the other dude, right?
Yeah.
So they go, well, I have to go to the east side. I'm going to a hospital on the east side because I heard it's cheaper. And it was like the best one they'd ever been to.
I'm sure.
And like, okay, now I'm going to go to Lady Bird Lake and go paddle around on a paddle board. He had an awesome time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, It's not like you have, especially in Austin, we have such a vibrant, town to live in. It doesn't all have to cost a gazillion dollars, but a little bit helps. I don't want to. For many people, buying a battery is a family emergency, and I hope that that's not something that you'll find. So that's why it's really important. It's like you're looking at what your acumen is, what you want to do, and then no offense, what can be paid for,
right?
And pick something that you enjoy, but that you can be paid for. And the last thing I want to do when I'm talking to people is I don't want to crush anyone's dreams. I really don't. I was working with an extremely nice woman, extremely bright, wants to be in fashion, which is awesome, but there was COVID going around, and not a good time for that industry in general at that particular time. And ended up, she decided to go back to school like I did when it was a recession for me, right? She went back to school, and got into Redmond College with an MBA, and the sky's the limit for her right now, right? So it's the circuitous route you may get to those decisions is perfectly fine, right? Like I said, the best thing you need to do, honestly, is to live your life to the fullest, because that's what it's all about. Helping others is what it's all about, just really, I can't say that enough. So I'm glad we got the opportunity, because I know that you help a lot of people that are in personal finances. And I think it's a great thing you do for the local community here for folks, and I appreciate it watching, and it makes me kind of smile that I was lucky enough to I didn't figure that all on my own. I did some reading, and I think the podcast is a great time to make that work. What I'm telling your audience though also is go for that brass ring, man. It is okay to work hard and make some money. And you can have some fun with it, and it doesn't have to suck. On the contrary, it can be rewarding, right? And I go to work every day. In my job right now, I am talking to some of the smartest people in the country, generally. And I help people find some new positions. And I'm able to also talk to them in a way that sometimes they need to hear, and sometimes it's kind of tough, right?
Yeah.
So we'll get on a call, and I know you're in job search, but dude, you need to do your hair. You're scaring people, right?
Absolutely. I love it. It's, cleaning up the back end of things too. I think, first of all, Yes, thank you so much for coming on the show. But I also, I just can't tell you what a wealth of information you've been able to share, not just with me as the host, but I think the people who are going to have the opportunity to listen to this episode are going to get more than they came for. I think that you just have a tremendous amount of experience and the level of excellence that you are and conduct throughout your day and then work with as well is really invaluable when it comes to advice, especially for those who are new in the job market or early on in their careers. I just want to say thank you so much, Sam, for coming.
Oh, what a pleasure. It's been a pleasure knowing you. I was delighted when you asked me to come on your show. If there's anything else I can do for you, by all means, I'm here. You're welcome to send me an email. It's sam.wood@thehtgroup.com. Love to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And if you are in job search, be sure to check our website, thehtgroup.com. Well, if you see something on there, by all means, let me know. I'll make sure it gets in the hands of the decision maker as well. I work with a great firm in town. We're here to help however we can. And what a blessing. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we will link all of the links in the description, and hope you guys will tune in next Wednesday at 10 a.m. And thank you all for joining us today.